We have to go after the deep state. This is the Praetorian Guard. This is the constant government we've had. This is why we're going to go after the administrative state. Not just the 2 million basic billets in the civilian side of the government, also the contractors, the 8 million contractors. We're going after all of it. And we're going to take it apart. And we don't care what the mainstream media thinks about that.
Yeah, that's Steve Bannon letting us know how ambitious their malignant plans are for the second Trump administration. Now, he's talking about dismantling our entire system of professional government, servants, and contractors, making them a political tool of the MAGA movement. All of it. Over 10 million people who work with our government are in the crosshairs now. You can't begin to imagine how disastrous that would be for everyday Americans, not just the feds or DC. I served in the Army. You cannot imagine how much you touch the federal government in your local towns and government areas than what these guys are going to do and how bad it gets. Now, he isn't just talking about out of his backside, right? Like he usually does. You know, he jam. I don't know how long his shows are. It's hours, and he tends to jam. But this idea that he's perpetuating is the entire pillar of Project 2025, the massive, nearly 1,000-page public blueprint with more being kept secret from the Heritage Foundation and over 100 other far-right groups backed by $20 million more dollars in dark money. Now, Project 2025 is a far-right roadmap for Donald Trump to seize supreme powers and radically undermine reproductive rights, LGBTQ equality, racial justice, free speech, using the military against peaceful protests. All the democratic institutions and freedoms that you hold dear are in the crosshairs of Project 2025, and that's just the public part. So why are they doing it? Why are they doing this? What is the plan? Well, our friend, Mr. Roid Rage himself, Dan Bongino, tells us precisely why in this little clip from his show.
The thing that matters is what? Chat. What matters? Anyone? Power. Power. You can see what I'm mouthing. Power. That is all that matters. No, it doesn't, Dan. We have a system of checks and balances. That's a good one. That's really funny. We do?
For those listening, the quiet parts in that piece were him mouthing the words, fucking power. I guess he did that to keep his Psycho Power Hour PG rated. Yes, power. That's the plan. That's why they want to do it. Power for who, you might ask? Well, obviously the far right, the Christian Nationalist movement, and more. But what really is going to make your blood run cold, and I can't believe I found this clip, Nick Fuentes, the white nationalist extremist who makes the Klan look like amateurs, has told his followers that he calls groypers, for those not familiar. These white supremacists are called groypers. Well, exactly who the plan is for and who should join it. Check this out.
The best thing that people can do right now, if you're a young person, is get involved in one of these things like American Moment or Project 2025 or the Trump campaign. If you're a young guy, you got to get involved in this stuff, and you got to be, you know, if push comes to shove, Trump wins, we got to fill up the White House with groypers. That's what we got to do. I mean, you know, we'll see what happens. We want him to come our way. If not, we just got to fill up his administration with groypers, which means you need to get in the database for American Moment or Project 2025 or AFPI or the Trump campaign. People are always asking me, how could I get involved? Sign up for one of those. Better yet, sign up for all of those. Send an email to all of those. Trump campaign, AFPI, which is America First Policy Institute, American Moment, Heritage, Project 2025. Join any of those. Join all of those. Send an email to all of those and try and get involved. Because that's the only other way I can see is if we could get everybody hired.
Yeah, you see, Project 2025 has been searching and vetting thousands of true believers to immediately infuse and take over our government on the very first day of a new Trump administration. Their announced plans enact Schedule F to make positions in the government at will. People can be fired without cause, take over 30,000 of their true believers, immediately spread them into the government on day one. You'll love calling that MAGA IRS agent or the Secret Service or the DOJ. So last week we talked about the danger of political violence, and especially if Trump loses. This week, timing was perfect as a number of House Democratic leaders announced a counter Project 2025 task force. Now, look, I got lucky. Okay, you're not going to believe this. To snag a nearly exclusive interview for Midas Touch with the founder of this effort, Congressman Jared Huffman of California, to tell us about their plans and how they're going to work to stop this disastrous effort in the unlikely but possible chance that Donald Trump does win in November. You know, you can't just wait to the last minute to make a plan about something that's going to seize our government on day one. So let's get to it. I am Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman right here on the Midas Touch Network or wherever you get your podcast. Let's get on with it with this important topic. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am still Fred Wellman, host of On Democracy with FP Wellman, as I mentioned like 30 seconds ago. This is such an important topic. I am thrilled to be able to get the guest we have today to talk about Project 2025. It is just nuts. And thank you for coming to join us. Congressman Jared Huffman is joining us, represents California's 2nd Congressional District, which spans the north coast of the state from the Golden Gate Bridge all the way to the Oregon border, ranking member of the Natural Resources Subcommittee on Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries. And I just found out a native Missourian. So, Matt, sir, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, Fred. Thanks.
I really appreciate it. Now, such an important topic. I know you're running around Capitol Hill, and I got you short time. You know, I opened with a montage of clips from a host of these most extreme MAGA cheerleaders threatening to use many of the prospects of Project 2025 to take over our government. That shocking one from Nick Fuentes telling his groypers to sign up and join the government. I mean, it's just shocking. But, you know, I have said before, you know, Heritage every 4 years has done a blueprint for the Republican administration. But this one is so shockingly different. How is this so different and dangerous that you guys decide to step up?
Yeah, they mean it this time.
Yeah.
And that's what's so alarming if you read this Project 2025 manifesto. Most people don't have time to wade through 1,000 pages of this stuff or to hang out on Steve Bannon's podcast and learn what these guys are up to. So you're doing your part to explain it to people why they should be deeply concerned. They're telling us in every possible way what they're going to do. In their words, as soon as Donald Trump says the words, "So help me God."
Yeah.
And we've got to take it seriously because last time around, they didn't really have their shit together. It was the dog catches car presidency, and it took them at least a year to figure out where the restrooms were. We don't have the luxury of time this time. That's why we wanted to get this task force put together to help you and others who are trying to spotlight this extreme agenda.
Well, I really appreciate it. And it is mind-boggling extreme. And it's funny you say that because it's 1,000 pages. And I always say they did it that way on purpose, I think. You know, I'm an old Army veteran. I was a veterans advocate on Capitol Hill for 10 years and other places. It seems like almost purposeful that it's so thick. It's so bureaucratic. It takes you a minute to read and realize what kind of things you're reading in there because of the bureaucraties. I mean, and some of the most heinous things in there, in your opinion, sir. I mean, you obviously your background's a whole lifetime in environmentalism. You've got partners from every aspect. But what's some of the most heinous things that you see coming in that plan?
That is so hard to answer, Fred, because every part of Project 2025 is just loaded with things that are existential threats to our democracy and to our individual rights. So that's one of our challenges with this task force. If you overwhelm people with all of it, you know, you may lose them. So we've got to really make this digestible. And different people will react to different parts of it. I think the invasion of the federal workforce, which you sort of alluded to by these groypers and others, should be deeply disturbing. They're talking about basically gutting the civil service system and instituting a MAGA loyalty system. They're developing their databases of these MAGA loyalists now. You've got Nick Fuentes and others trying to funnel people into these database programs so that on day one, the purge happens and in come these MAGA loyalists. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I kind of think the civil service system that Teddy Roosevelt put in place a century ago is really important for the continuity of government, the competency of government, and the integrity of government. That's going to be swept away. But that's just one of many hair on fire examples you have from this manifesto.
Yeah, and it really is significant. Again, I know from as an Army officer, and a lot of people don't understand the aspects of the Army and the military the way I do, in the sense of, when we deployed to combat in Iraq, I went 3 times. We didn't leave anybody behind to run the base. That was civilians. Those are so much of the military runs on a civilian workforce that understands, military officers, military soldiers, we come and go, 20-year career, but you're at a station for a year, 2, 3 years. The reason the military and the DoD runs so smoothly is that continuity and that understanding and the professionalism, the long-term effect. The people that Steve Bannon calls the deep state, I tell people, I think I mentioned in the intro, imagine dealing with a MAGA IRS agent when you have a problem and you happen to maybe do things like I do for a living. You know what I mean? I don't think people understand that kind of stuff. So what was the tip? I mean, I would love to hear how you put together this task force. I mean, you've brought together, I'm not going to list them all, but obviously, Ted Lieu, Annette Berrigan. I mean, you've got an incredible diversity of your caucus. How did you put this together, and what brought these specific people into the fold with you to fight this?
So I was part of a briefing for the Progressive Caucus about 2 months ago by ACLU and a number of other groups who are trying to sound the alarm about Project 2025. And it certainly worked for me. I realized in that moment that we needed to step up and do much, much more to spotlight this agenda, mainly because we want the American people to know about it so they can make a good decision this fall. But also in the unthinkable scenario that Trump actually wins the White House, we got to be ready, because they're telling us in every way that this is going to move out at light speed. And if we are on our heels, if we're in denial, if we're reacting to it, we're in real trouble. This could be the end of the game for our democracy this time around. So I began vetting this with some of my colleagues. Incredible interest across the spectrum of the Democratic caucus. And that's why, as you mentioned, we've got the leaders of all of the key caucuses here, the Hispanic caucus, Black caucus, Equality caucus, Pro-Choice caucus, right down the line, because there are parts of Project 2025 that are deeply threatening and disturbing to each of these groups.
Yeah, and it really is. And that's what shocked me, too, is that those conversations are occurring. And what I loved, I was in the Army a long time, and we had Chief of Staff General Sullivan many years ago. And his motto of Chief of Staff of the Army was, hope is not a strategy. Yeah. And it's dangerous for us in politics to plan, but nobody ever wants us to plan for losing, right? You can't say losing. And so, I love the fact, and the reason I jumped on the opportunity to talk to you is as a military planner. That's what I did in the Army for most of my career, was I huddled in secure rooms writing plans. You do have to plan for the worst case scenario. The enemy does get a vote in a lot of times. And in politics, we try to avoid those conversations. But I was thrilled to see that you guys said, no, you know what, we have to plan in case we don't win that White House, what we're going to do. And that's unusual in politics. Did you get pushback? People saying, oh, no, we don't want to talk about losing, or does everyone understand the threat?
Yeah, only a little bit. I did, encounter some nervousness. We have folks within our Democratic family who think we just can't prepare for a second Trump presidency because it'll look like we think Biden's going to lose. Yeah. That is not what's going on here. I have every intention of making sure President Biden wins, making sure this unthinkable scenario never happens. But you're kind of crazy to not at the same time get ready for this. Because here you have this former president who has unleashed a violent mob on the Capitol to try to stop the transfer of power. He has no boundaries and no limitations, no constraints. And he's telling us, and his inner circle is telling us exactly what they're going to do. So you have to be willfully naive to not take that very seriously. And it happens to serve our interests in the election, too, by alerting the American people and helping us win, because they got a clear-eyed sense of what would be coming if we don't win.
And it's so true. I mean, I think people they sit on the stupidity of thinking it's going to be the same as it was last time. And especially if you remember, the RNC platform in 2020 was literally whatever Donald wants to do. And these malicious people learned their lesson on that. And they've got a plan. What really worries me, and do you think about the parts, I think I mentioned earlier, the head of Heritage was on a panel, I think, a few months ago, and he literally said out loud that while there is a 1,000-page manifesto online, the secret stuff, there's more there that hasn't been broadcast. I mean, as bad as the stuff that's written is, what do you think could possibly be in the secret parts at this point?
Can you imagine the part they're not willing to say out loud? Because they are swaggering like we've never seen before and saying the quiet stuff out loud. Yeah, it's pretty chilling, Brett. And, we're talking about things like using the Insurrection Act and other emergency authorities to do extreme fascist dystopic things with our military.
Yeah.
We are talking about dusting off old morality codes from the late 1800s and using those to impose biblical values and standards on libraries and teachers and everything else in the public domain. This is really extreme and scary stuff.
And I think almost sometimes it's almost cartoonishly evil. I've seen that term used actually, and the clips you saw at the beginning with, Dan Bongino said it's about effing power. They're so cartoonishly evil in their, roid rage T-shirts, but we can't ignore them because of that, right? We have to see through that to the bureaucratic, because that's the thing. Some of those groups, tell us a little bit about the groups beyond Heritage they're involved. I mean, it's more than just them. I know Stephen Miller's there and others. I mean, it isn't just Heritage, is it?
No, it's a who's who of the fever swamp of the right wing. All the key players, people that were senior officials in Trump's first administration, people that we know will get top jobs if Trump is this Russ Vought guy.
Yeah.
Is off the charts extreme in terms of what he wants to see in executive power. There's really no limit to executive power in his worldview. And don't discount the role of extreme Christian extremism in all of this as well. I mean, we talk about, this term Christian nationalist starting to enter the national conversation. A lot of people don't really understand what it is and why it's such a dark threat.
Yeah.
But these folks absolutely want to impose a mandated Christian nationalism on the country. Russ Vought is one of many extreme Christian nationalists that are driving this. And so that's where the morality codes from the Comstock Act come into play. That's where things like a Muslim ban and a lot more for immigration policy come into play, basically a religious test for immigrants. We're talking about federal programs like apprenticeships that are going to become promotion organs for Christianity, essentially. These are things they're saying in their own blueprint. So, it just goes right down the line. And you asked about some of the other groups. Well, prominent among them is the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is a group where Speaker Mike Johnson cut his teeth as a young lawyer out there trying to tear down the separation of church and state. It's what ADF does in all of these cases that it gins up around the country to tear apart the Establishment Clause and impose this default Christian nation ideology.
And they're right there writing their own policies or the secret policies we don't know about. And that's what kind of disturbs me. And that's before we talk about what I think has been estimated $25 million at least in dark money. I mean, what kind of people would fund this madness, do you think?
Well, there's a network of right-wing dark money that loves this stuff. And, for the last couple decades, there's been this weird marriage between plutocrats like the Koch brothers and the Mercers and the DeVosses and the Princes. You go right down the line of these folks.
The usual suspects.
And the most extreme fundamentalist right-wing Christian pastors and organizations. So that's what's coming at us, basically this dark money Christian nationalist machine. And you got to take it's real. This is not some conspiracy theory. It is all too real, and it is what's behind Project 2025.
Let's take a break there for our sponsor. We've got a couple great sponsors, and I want to come back and I want to talk about what you're going to be doing. So let's talk to our sponsors. We got some great ones this week, and we'll be right back. If you're like me, you understand the pain of finding out what to wear each day. I mean, most clothes I have are uncomfortable, never actually the size I really am, and not to mention how much time is wasted trying to find a good outfit. And when you do have a good fit, you can only wear it for a few hours. We have to change for an important meeting or dinner, find a new outfit. Now, everyone wants to dress well at all times because, simply put, it's a confidence booster, even for men like me. Men's closets were due for a radical overhaul and reinvention, and Rhone stepped up to the challenge. Rhone's commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man, and here's why. Rhone helps you get ready for any occasion with the commuter collection, which offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. You've never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Rhone commuter collection. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Rhone is 100% machine washable, so you can just ditch it all in the dry cleaner or ditch the dry cleaner completely, put it all in your own washing machine yourself. You know, I'm obsessed with the Rowan Commuter Collection. We're on the move a lot, whether it's I'm catching a flight or I'm going to a meeting or whatever. The Rowan Commuter Collection has never let me down so far. The Commuter Collection get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to head to rowan.com/Fred. Use promo code Fred to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/Fred and use code Fred. It's time for you to find your corner office of comfort. Check out our sponsor, Rowan. I hope you'll buy some outfits today. You know, when we talk about Super Beats Hard Chews Advanced, we talk about the 3-in-1 mixture of support they give. And my 3-in-1 is, you know, I am as you guys know, I'm a podcast host. I'm also a hiker, and I'm a parent and a grandparent. And I need support for a healthy lifestyle. And the great thing about Super Beats Chews Advanced is they have the added support of CoQ10 and blood pressure support, paired with a healthy lifestyle. The grapeseed extract in Super Beats is clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than just a healthy lifestyle alone, which I've been trying to live. New Super Beats Hard Chews Advanced supports healthy CoQ10 level, an important nutrient for heart health, which I live for. The thing I love about the chews is this. One, they taste great. I mean, you get a lot of supplements that aren't great. You know, they're kind of like drinking chalk. But Super Beats Hard Chews actually taste good. I fit them right in my daily lifestyle. They give me an energy boost. They give me a mind boost when I'm going out to go for a walk. I'm working in the garden for a few hours. I feel good knowing that I'm getting that heart healthy help and support for a healthier lifestyle, which I need after being a veteran of the Army for 22 years. And I have a lot of beat up body parts, and it takes a lot for me to keep on going every day. And I'm happy to say that Super Beats Hard Chews help me keep that going. Now, CoQ10 generates 95% of the cellular energy that your heart needs in your body, but it can decline with age, stress, and a statin use if you're on statins, which I'll be honest, I have some heart healthy methods I take myself. So it's an effective and clinically researched ingredients like Super Beats. They're the #1 doctor, pharmacist, and cardiologist recommended best brand of beets for cardiovascular health support. So find out how you can get a free 30-day supply on bundles of new Super Beats Hard Chews Advanced and save 15% for a limited time only by going to superbeatsradio.com and use the promo code FRED. That's Super Beats, BEETS radio.com, promo code FRED. Find out how you're getting a discount, get a bundle of these great products that I use daily and stand behind. Thanks so much for supporting our show. All right, we're back. Man, I want to keep going. So on that line, you're building a task force. I mean, nothing makes an old soldier happier than hear the words task force. Is what we do. It's not just going to be Congress, though, right? You've got an intention to bring in outside groups and others. Who do you see? One is already partners, but Frank, I'd love to use this platform to say, hey, who would you like to hear from to join this task force and join this movement?
Yeah, there are a bunch of groups that are already doing really good work in this space. And so Accountable, Center for American Progress, ACLU, it's a long list. I don't want to offend anyone by leaving them out.
Of course.
But it's a fantastic coalition of super smart folks and experts and scholars who are onto this and trying to do their part. So we're going to work in partnership with them. We're going to have our first organizing meeting of this task force tomorrow. We're going to identify a number of issue briefings that we will have as members of the task force in partnership with these groups and these experts. And then we're going to roll out something that looks much more like an actual hearing that will be public facing. The whole world will see it, and we will draw in the highlights from all of these subject matter briefings and try to make it digestible for folks so that they get it, so they understand what's at stake.
That's fantastic. A lot of us been out here sounding the alarm. I've seen there's a lot more videos popping up. My old organization, Lincoln Project's been on here at the Midas Touch. We talk about a lot, of course. It is good to see more people join that fight. On those lines, we said pulling the string on the aspects of it. I'd like to circle back to that because, as you said, members of the Progressive Caucus, you started with the Free Thought Caucus. But, I was looking, as I was prepping for our show, so I was doing your bio, your entire career, almost adult life has been first, clean water for California and then environmental action, turning back the tide on damages to rivers and the coastlines there in California. What are some of the dark aspects? I know there's environmental parts of this thing, too. Your specialty is environmentalism. What's in Project 2025 that makes you nervous as a professional and a longtime advocate for our environment?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an enviro. I'm a climate forward guy, and that's all in Project 2025 too. The reason I don't maybe lead with that is because there's nothing new there. We have seen this right-wing agenda for a long time. We see it, in some of the first bills that the Republican majority introduced in this Congress. It's basically handing the keys to the fossil fuel industry and the mining interests and others. This is what they do. So in that respect, Project 2025 is really nothing new. Doesn't mean I don't care about it. Doesn't mean I'm not going to fight it tooth and nail. But the stuff that's new and different in Project 2025 is really the direct assault on our democracy and our individual rights and church-state separation and things like that.
Yeah, I get that. Now, obviously, the number one way to beat this is win the election. We know the fight won't end with that. Do you guys plan to talk about recommending certain creative legislative fixes because there's things we can. I often think from the first Trump administration, the Hatch Act. The one thing, if we didn't learn one thing from the Trump administration, is the Hatch Act had no teeth in it, right? If the president decided not to prosecute somebody for breaking it, then nothing happened, right? Thus, Goya beans being sold on the Resolute desk. Are you going to look at perhaps legislative fixes or recommendations for executive orders that could scuttle some of the most dangerous plans even before they, kill them in the nest, if you will?
Certainly, if there are things, an executive order is only as good as the executive. That's
exactly.
The problem.
Yep.
So, much of our toolbox for confronting Project 2025 will depend on the election. If we're sitting on Democratic majorities in one or both houses of Congress, there's all kinds of things that we can do. And I think as we move forward and see what happens in the election, we'll come up with appropriate strategies there. But right now, I think the focus is just alerting the American people and making sure that members of Congress understand what is coming. The tools we'll have to fight it will depend on what happens in the election.
Yeah, we've got to flip the House, obviously, and we've got to keep the Senate, and that will be the real stop is all of you on the front line. And you've done, I don't want to blow smoke on you, but you guys done a brilliant job in the minority. I've watched, you guys come together as a team in ways we've never seen the Democratic Party, and it's paying off in spades because they're so busy killing each other.
I'm like ferrets in a phone booth, as we say.
I like that. I'll be stealing that. It really is. And I live in Missouri. We're a super minority. The Democrats here, and it's the same thing. They still they passed 3 bills last legislative session because in the end, the diversity of their coalition now is as dangerous, and that I think that comes together in Project 2025, doesn't it? There are so many groups that in many ways they will be at odds in their malicious ends. I mean, I'm not necessarily sure that the normies, that even the semi-normies that invoke the heritage, I'm dying to hear what they think of groypers and open white supremacists joining the coalition they're trying to build. Do you think there's a hope that we can build the friction there?
Are there normies left at the Heritage?
Well, I was hesitant to say that. I'm not going to lie. There used to be, but I don't think you're right. I don't think there are anymore, are there?
I mean, how could they open Pandora's box to groypers and everyone else in these databases and all of these loyalty tests? I mean, the normies are long gone.
Yeah.
Not just from Heritage and all of these other groups, but from the Republican Party, in my opinion.
Well, and you have been very open, and you start, as I mentioned, the Free Thought Caucus. You have been very open about the danger of Christian nationalism, much more than a lot. You're much more aggressive in that. We have seen that ridiculous, flag hanging outside the Speaker's office, the one that's been causing controversy with Alito. Yeah. I mean, there's this open Christian nationalism, and they're trying to dog whistle it, right? Let's not just Project 2025, but what you're facing right now in our Congress and our Capitol Hill, this danger. How bad is it? I mean, you're on the inside up there, sir.
Yeah.
How nervous should we be that the growing influence, separate from this madness, separate from Trump, they open the door to the Christian nationalism? It's getting bad, isn't it?
Thank you. This is a really important part of the conversation. It doesn't get enough attention. I'm dumb enough to talk about it all the time because I'm the only member. I'm the only member in Congress who is openly non-religious. I don't believe in God. That makes me a real anomaly in politics, certainly in national politics.
Yep.
I have strong morality standards and other things. There's all kinds of things we could talk about the stigma against non-believers. But in terms of what it means for our country and in this moment, even my friends who are deeply religious, Christians, Jews, others, don't want to live in a 3rd century Christian theocracy.
Right.
Right. And that's what this is all about. I mean, Project 2025, among many other alarming elements, would codify the Sabbath, which would default to Sunday. We're now talking about a federal policy of requiring overtime pay on the Christian Sabbath. This is one of many ways in which you just start to embed this religiosity into government in ways that would make Madison and Jefferson roll in their grave. So we're losing church-state separation. We are farther down the road to a Margaret Atwood Handmaid's Tale type of dystopic theocracy than many Americans realize. And I'm trying to do my part to warn them about it and sound the alarm.
I'm right there with you. I mean, honestly, I feel the same way. And I saw it even and it's been growing for years. I saw it when I was a young Army officer. I think I had a boss in the Army wanted me to go to one of these men's religious, conferences in Hawaii in 1998. I mean, it has been infusing itself more and more at the lowest levels. And I don't know if you've seen it, the Army was dealing with the situation where a church is trying to embed itself outside every military base, and
they're already embedded.
Yeah.
They're in every military base. These programs exist. The clergy embedded into the military, but it's that way in after school programs in much of the country. I mean, we are just getting further and further down the road to theocracy. And paradoxically, this is happening in a nation that is becoming less religious every day.
Right.
So something's got to give here. We're either going to be a secular government like our founders created. We're going to be pluralistic. We're going to respect all religious viewpoints and true religious liberty, or we're going to be this dystopic biblical theocracy that these guys are trying to force on us.
It's terrifying. Now, this is going to be the hardest part of this whole conversation, sir. I try to end every show on a positive note, and an optimistic note, and a recent poll was kind of shocking to many, how even to many of us who are politically minded, how many Americans have no idea about Project 2025. They have no idea about Agenda 47, which is the sister project that Stephen Miller claims, which is the official part of Trump's plans. I guess I want to say, can we beat this back even if Trump pulls off the win? And how can our viewers and average Americans help you do this? And do you see hope that we can beat this malignant plan?
Yeah, I know we can beat it because pretty much every element of this is deeply unpopular with the American people. So we just got to make sure they know what this is and that they know to take it seriously, because there's so much just conspiracy theory, junk information swirling around as we get closer to this election. That's why it's so important that we just make this known, that we just put it in context. Look, if you're motivated by fear to get to the polls and do the right thing, that's okay with me, because this is a moment where you really actually should be afraid. But we should also understand that if we get the word out, if we do our work, the wind is at our back. The American people want no part of this crazy, fascist, Christian nationalist, extremist agenda. They want to live in a free country. They want to have their own religious views. They want to have their individual liberties. They want to be in a democracy. So we've got a lot going for us if we do our work well this year.
Well, a lot of us are out here to help you. I know we call them the Mighty, the people who watch this network, and I know they're positive and passionate about it. Every time I mention Project 2025, there's a host of comments on the show, which I read, believe it or not, because you can on Midas Touch, and they're passionate about helping. So we're eager to help. What are next steps, sir? And then what can we expect from this and from you, and where can we find more information?
You bet. So these subject matter briefings are going to start rolling out very soon here in Congress with the members of this task force. I, by the way, have colleagues coming out of the woodwork to want to be on this task force. So it's going to be really an active group, a broadly representative group, and working in partnership with those outside think tanks and experts that you mentioned. We will bring forward these issue briefings, and then we're going to take them into a public-facing hearing format that will be open for the whole world to see. And at the end of that, we will roll out our conclusions and recommendations probably around the September timeframe.
Well, we're eagerly waiting, and we're all happy to help, and we'll keep trying to push the word and get those clips of those briefings out. And I just personally, as an old soldier, I've got a son-in-law who's still serving in the Army that would be subject matter to being thrown into this mess. He himself, just so you know, for perspective, was one of the National Guardsmen that guarded the Lee statue in Charlottesville during the Unite the Right rally in 2017. One of the longest days I've had as a father, to include the 4 combat tours I did myself, was waiting to hear from my National Guard son-in-law whose phone had died that day. So it is, my family and myself know just how dangerous this is when these people are unleashed upon the nation and people get hurt.
Thank you for you and your son. And if I could just say one more thing in this conversation, I think it's important that we not let these crazy right-wing extremists define patriotism.
Yeah.
And you get that, and your son gets that, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate you for doing this, and as a fellow Missourian, we really appreciate you even more. So thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing more, and we're standing by, ready to help in any way we can.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Wow. I mean, man, I am a happy camper. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. You watch the show regularly. I hope you do. If you're new, welcome. I am so passionate about fighting back against Project 2025. I shockingly do know some of the people involved from my past life, and it's really, really bad. And they've cleverly buried it in administrative bullshit. But it is really bad, and there's something bad for everybody. I mean, you know, and look, I just can't tell you enough. And I talked about last week that I'm in the crosshairs, and I'm going to talk about that now too. Look, if you look at history, they never stop with the first list of targets. Okay, they have to have enemies, and once they've cleaned out that first set of enemies, they'll create new ones. And so it's up to all of us to never let America become that. I hope you caught that National Public Radio, the NPR story from This American Life about what we're doing here. That This American Life did focus. They called it Come Retribution is the name of the episode. It's still available online, and you may be hearing at your local NPR station. I've had a number of people reach out to me. I am in that story pretty extensively with friends, the Vinmans and Stephanie Grisham, who I don't know. And they do highlight what we're dealing with, that we are dealing with actual doxing. We're dealing with actual threats to our lives, physical ones, people sitting outside our houses in darkened vehicles. It is very real to those of us who are out here, and that's okay. I mean, as I say in there, like fine, bring it. You know, I mean, I knew that when I stepped up into this business. I knew it when I continued it. I knew it when they started threatening me. That's what we're here for. Having said that, there is an aspect to all this that wasn't really covered in the show. The aspect to all that is the Flynn lawsuit that I've mentioned to you before. For those who don't know, Mike Flynn has decided to individually sue me in federal court for defamation for what is now a single tweet from over 2 years ago. And he wants $150 million. Now, it seems ludicrous, but you also have to understand that the federal court system is very slow. I believe they picked the federal court instead of a state because it is extra, extra slow. For example, we did all of our filings to have it dismissed, to highlight the Florida anti-SLAPP law, all those things, and they've been languishing in the federal court for going on 3 months now. We have not heard a peep from the judge or the court. They're backed up, I'm sure, because it's the federal court in Florida. And so it's just silence. And that's what they wanted, okay? Because I still have to pay for lawyers. I still have to pay for research. We still have to deal with the threat to my professional life. I mean, let's be honest, folks. If you were a corporation's CEO, would you hire a guy with a $150 million lawsuit hanging over his head? I don't know. I was a CEO. I wouldn't, okay? And that's what they wanted when they filed the lawsuit. Okay. Now, as I said in the NPR piece, there's no one more dangerous than a man with zero assets and zero fucks to give. Okay. And I am that guy. So that's fine. However, I do have to do this. It is costing money. Even though my incredible attorneys, Mark Zaid and Brad Moss, are doing a pro bono, my attorney in Florida is not able to do that. Our researchers and paralegals are not able to do it. Travel, when we start doing depositions here in a couple of months, are not free. Those are the costs that go with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Unfortunately, we have a GoFundMe legal defense fund being managed by my lawyer, Mark Zaid, who's very ethical, and I don't touch the money. I will not gain this money that I don't think. I mean, most of it's been spent already. So we're going to put that up on the screen. We're going to put it in the blurb. I would really appreciate for me, I don't often ask for me. I ask you to give to candidates. I ask you to give to forgotten Democrats. But in this case, we are at a point now where I need to kind of fill up the legal defense fund a little bit as we prepare for the next phase, because it does look like this may continue, and we'll have to go to the part that actually really starts costing some real money. We'll put that in the screen. It's on the GoFundMe. If you look up Defend Democracy Against MAGA Litigation, just Defend Democracy Against MAGA Litigation, you'll see my picture. I think we'll throw it up on screen here. I would be so appreciative if you consider just a little bit of money, just a couple bucks, just to help us keep this fight going. I am not quitting. I am not settling. I did not turn to my insurance company because, ironically, I'm not covered by that based on the timing of when they decide to sue me. This is on me and me alone to handle this, and I will not step away from this fight. If any of you know me well enough by now, you know I'm not afraid to call it like it is. Mike Flynn does not scare me. Mike Flynn's followers do not scare me. They want us to be scared. You heard Steve Bannon at the very first clip of this show talking about what they plan to do. I didn't run a clip of Steve Bannon saying, we want you to be scared. That ain't going to work, folks. But we also have to be realistic. And for that, I will need some money in the legal defense fund to enable us to continue this fight. So if you would be so kind, I would be forever grateful if you would consider throwing a couple bucks in our legal defense fund. Again, the link is on screen and it'll be on the blurb of the video. And I just, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. I've had some incredible guests. My dear friend Doug Habekost funded a lot of it. I'm so blessed to have Doug in my family and others who have just stepped up in big ways. So I wouldn't be here without you guys. I wouldn't be in the fight if it wasn't for you guys supporting these efforts. As always, you can find out more information on my Substack, fpwellman.substack.com. I always plug Forgotten Democrats. It's the place we're putting money into congressional races, yada, yada, yada. The most important fights ahead of us, folks. We are winning. We will continue to win. These people do not have it in them. They will not beat us. We are America. We are the patriots. We believe in the real founders of this country and what they truly believed, not the misguided and misaligned and lies and twists of truth and myths that they've turned it into. The truth about America is we are a pluralistic, liberal democracy, and none of these nut jobs are going to change that. So thank you for joining the show. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, like, subscribe, leave a comment. I love hearing from you. In the meantime, keep up the fight. Check out all of our In the Hot Seat interviews with candidates. I've got some incredible ones going up this week. Thank you for everything you are. Thank you for being part of the Mias Madi. We will see you next week right here in the same place.